we have never learned to feel our feelings and to accept all of the feelings as valid. And now we're coming across all of this spiritual material that's telling us, like, raise your frequency and like just be in peace and joy. And you're like, no, but well, I'm not. Like, this is really tough and I'm going through a huge amount of shit. Okay, the reality is you are going through a huge amount of shit because it has increased. The amount of light coming in has increased. It's flooding this planet, which means that there is an intensification of the number of so-called obstacles that you have to overcome. Everything has been done, obviously, in terms of this tampering with our frequency so that we're kept only in that fearful egoic self, repeating the programs of childhood. I have realized that every video needs to start with a even 20-second prayer so that we are proceeding from a basis of remembering we are divine. So Mother, Father, God, great host of ascended masters, archangels, and Elohim, beloved mighty I am presence, and great cosmic light, may this video find whoever it is meant to find, and may it serve them on their ascension path as we come home to God together. What I need to talk about today is the exhaustion of the ascension path and this feeling of, if I know the truth, why can't I stay awake? Why have I worked out that humanity was enslaved and is enslaved and we're in this false matrix system, and I'm learning all of these things and watching all of these videos, and yet I keep going back to sleep? Most of my awakening path has been like this, and I think it's intensified even more. The more I learn, the more frustrated I get when I fall back to sleep in the illusion. But this is part and parcel of this process. The Council of Light has explained a lot about why we're not being, they often have used this term, like catapulted into a new reality, because energetically we wouldn't be able to hold it. The Council of Light say, we know how wild it is to wake up at all to a truth that has been alluded to in your science fiction stories, but now you are realizing that the truth is far stranger than fiction. We know many are struggling. We are trying to awaken you all as best we can, but the important thing is that you open to the love that surrounds you, so that you are held through this process. You cannot try and learn this scientifically. You have to feel your way into ascension, not try and do or think your way into it. Loving the self is the only way, dear one. You are keeping yourself in the cycle. Zero judgment. There is no failure when you slip back into the illusion. You came there to earth to experience it all, not just the good stuff. So when you are struggling, don't think in any way you have failed. You chose to learn in this way because it propels you to search for the cause of suffering and realize it is your own consciousness. It has to be uncomfortable to propel change. Now, for those of you who are still curious about like what is ascension, I'm just for a moment going to touch on the fact that, like a brief explanation. Normally, this full multidimensional awareness only occurs to humans at the moment of death. When you look back, so at the moment of death, you suddenly are separate from this human body and this mind, this egoic consciousness, and you then see, the dead body and your old body, and you realize, I have continued, I am not that, I never was that. So suddenly you have a multidimensional perspective. This has been, many of us have had past life remembrances now and sessions and, a billion people. I'm not here to persuade you of anything. Take what resonates and leave the rest. This is for those of you who are awake and learning who we are and what we're doing here. So there is often a certain amount of trauma in past life regressions when people, go back to this moment, because obviously it can be very distressing. So normally, it's at the moment of death that you look back at the body and then regain full multidimensional awareness and are aware that you were not that. So in other words, that separation occurs. Now, what's going to happen in the ascension process is that because of the amount of light flooding in, we're going to be able to access our multidimensional selves while still here in physical form. So just try and imagine this for a moment, that you are, going about your day, playing this character, in my case, this character of Amanda. And now suddenly you are aware, like, I'm not this character, I'm multidimensional. I can view things from anyone's perspective simultaneously. I am a divine being. These thoughts move through me. They are not mine. Like a complete, out of body experience. It would be completely psychologically destabilizing. You would literally lose your mind if you suddenly had this experience. So what is happening is that it is being tempered so that we are moving in and out of being back in the character that we're playing, and therefore subject to all of the egoic programming that has been done, living in a fear-based societal system. And then we have these other moments when we're able to transcend. Everything has been done, obviously, in terms of this tampering with our frequency so that we're kept only in that fearful egoic self, repeating the programs of childhood and, believing in fear and scarcity and shame and lack. And so at the moment, what is happening is we shift backwards and forwards. Now, there's a whole lot of things that I can say. Most of us are trying to override this matrix programming, all that fear and scarcity and whatever, with our minds. But it is our minds that have been programmed. So what we are being shown is that we need to shift our frequency rather than going, I need to overcome these mind programs. I need to believe that I am worthy. That is a very, exhausting way. There are other ways that our ascension process can be so much easier. And this morning I listened to a beautiful audio from the Journey to Freedom series that I created about 3 years ago. It's channeled from the Council of Light, and it's so beautiful. So I'm going to put that on as the next video. I'm just going to share that audio as it is. I'm still debating what to do with, what I put on the screen, seeing as this is on YouTube while I'm playing these audios, but I'll figure that out. There's AI pictures and all of these things, but I'm not really sure how much I want to go down that AI route, although there are some very beautiful images that help us to imagine what it is like to be in the light body and to dissolve this physical form. Back to the core message that I want to share with you today, which is that it is okay. If you need reminding today and every day, multiple times a day, that you are a creator being, that you are divine, and that you're just playing a human, it's okay. Not everybody, we have this thing where we compare ourselves to others and go, well, like, this person seems to be in joy and abundance and peace and, look at their lives and, here I am struggling. Part of this process is learning to be at complete peace with what is. So we have been programmed to, I don't know why I'm getting such an itchy nose. They say that that's when people are talking about you. Part of what we've been programmed to do is to compare ourselves to others, and that happens. Think about the school system. You're constantly compared to others. We compare ourselves to others, and we have never learned to feel our feelings and to accept all of the feelings as valid. And now we're coming across all of this spiritual material that's telling us, like, raise your frequency and, like, just be in peace and joy. And you're like, no, well, I'm not. Like, this is really tough and I'm going through a huge amount of shit. Okay, the reality is you are going through a huge amount of shit because it has increased. The amount of light coming in has increased. It's flooding this planet, which means that there is an intensification of the number of so-called obstacles that you have to overcome. So big obstacles now, as people losing, like, their jobs and all their income and their entire house in a fire, in a flood, in a whatever, losing marriages. It is like you are being diverted massively in a new direction and figuring out, like, who am I? Why am I here? What is the point? These big questions. Now, remember that the Matrix has tried to keep us from asking these big questions. You're supposed to just, like, settle along and do your 9 to 5 and, work for the system and, like, live in fear and don't question authority. That's the programming. And everything now is here to wake us up. This light is flooding in, bringing all of that darkness, all of the shadow, all of the doubt, all of the shadow in ourselves and in society at large, like in the world, all of that darkness, bringing it all to the light. So it is going to be tumultuous. Personally and, collectively, it is going to be tumultuous. So stop right now comparing yourself to what is going on for anybody else. You are in your own fractal classroom of consciousness, okay? Completely your own classroom. Now, the difficulty with this concept is that imagine you go into a school and the classrooms are all glass. So you look into these other classrooms and you see what everybody else is learning and you're like, oh my God, am I in the slow class? Like, look at what they're learning in there. So imagine we're souls now and we're looking and these people are learning how to, create from nothing. And these people are molding with like light and these people are developing their psychic abilities and like, oh my God, I'm still learning how to do ABC. It would not be helpful in a school if the pupils in the youngest grade were like looking at all the pupils in all of the other grades and going, oh my God, I'm never going to get there. So we can't compare ourselves because we don't know why they're in that classroom. The other thing is it's not linear. So we've been taught to think of learning as like a very linear thing and that you are here and then you go there and then you go there. But in the Earth School, it's not like that. You have multiple different lessons that you are learning. So you might have, like music with this teacher, history with this teacher, geography with this teacher. You are learning different things at different times. And your curriculum is unique. So there's some stuff you learned in other lifetimes. That's not the focus for this lifetime. Maybe, mastering wealth was something that you did in another lifetime. Deep grief is something you had to move through and you lost everybody and multiple people in your last lifetime. I recently heard about somebody who's had so many losses, like my mind was just blown that somebody has gone in this lifetime through so much loss. Mother and child and brothers and sisters and best friends and whatever. So we cannot compare ourselves to others. You are having your own particular curriculum and you are at different, levels in different subjects at different times. So don't look over at whatever somebody else is going through or that they are, completely winning at that aspect. They have a YouTube channel that's got 10,000 subscribers. Maybe that's what they're meant to be doing at this stage. You are on your path. And so it really helps to spend time, obviously, in silence every day and just disengaging from what everybody else is doing. And that's hard because we have these phones which are constantly plugging us into what everybody else is doing all the time. It's very hard to find your voice, to come home to you with this barrage of information that is coming at us. So you're in a unique fractal classroom of consciousness, learning the lessons that your soul has chosen, and stop comparing yourself to anybody else. Now, to return to some of this programming, you've been programmed to think a certain way and to worry. I mean, I have a mother who is a worrier, worrier. And so I know that I've been, and then I trained as a lawyer. So I was trained to look at and think about everything that could be going wrong. It is very hard to unplug yourself from the system because we are told you have to change your circumstances by working hard. Like that is the default program. When you go, I'm opting out of that, like I don't believe that that's true, that I'm going to hold a different frequency and then my external circumstances are going to change. People are going to think you batshit crazy. And particularly family and friends who are not on this same path. And so my advice is really that you don't share about these things with people whose ears are closed and whose hearts are closed, because it's just like putting your beautiful creation out there and, having it dashed against the rocks. So at this time, as you are recalibrating and learning like all of these new things, you need to stick with people who are on a similar path, who understand what the hell awakening is and what a matrix is and what we're doing here. We need to seek each other out. So supportive communities of those who are awakening. Laura Matsu and Bernard Gunther, I know they talk a lot about people who are blackpilling others. And there's a lot of that, like the doomsday scenarios and like constant revelations of the darkness on this planet. And it is easy to get caught up in learning too much about like the collapse of the old system and the darkness. It is more important at this time that we pay attention to our own light, to growing that light inside us. And that's why you can see that paying attention to all the darkness doesn't help. Looking at how everybody else is doing and seems to be doing in their ascension doesn't help. Beating yourself up for not being further along on your awakening path, that you're not living in bliss and ease and joy and abundance, give that up. All of that stuff is just looping you again and again in terms of keeping stuck. So I wrote some notes. This is not notes for this. This is actually just like my journal that I have in front of me. And I put now all of my journal notes and all of the channeled messages all in one place, because this increasing sense of ADHD, scatteredness, is because we are in multiple dimensions at the same time. I've got a message from the Council of Light explaining the scatteredness, which is beautiful. I don't like dealing with like ADHD. It's not, we're not all sick, okay? There is so much pathologizing of these symptoms, which many of them are ascension symptoms. But of course, now we run into territory with Big Pharma and whatever when you start going, challenging and pushing back. Like, well, why does everybody have ADHD suddenly? So what I want to share is that whenever you are struggling with anything, any form of suffering, it's because you're back in the illusion. Because our natural state is divine oneness. It is no separation. It is being back home in terms of your consciousness, being back home with God. It's that your mind knows that it's not split. It's not a small, fearful person here fighting against the odds and overcoming all the obstacles. When you come back to that connection, then it's like the ego voice can be pushed to one side. There are fears and there are concerns, but you're not consumed by them. That's what the human self is going through, and your job is to just love this human self through it. That is staying awake. When you're able to have that perspective that you are divine, and you are able to remember that your soul job is to love your human self through his awakening. That's what we're doing here. Now there's more and more pieces that come to mind. Again, I have been told by my guides that it's my greatest gift, but can also be a downfall, that multiple thoughts come at the same time, like, and then I can either be incredibly scattered and get nothing done because I'm trying to do 50 things at once, or I can choose to focus on one and one and one and one. But sometimes when I'm speaking, there's like a collision of all the things that I want to share. So to return to this idea that trying to fight your own ego, trying to fight it from the level of mind, that's a form of insanity. When we come from a different feeling state, then our thoughts are going to follow suit. So just bear with me a moment. I want to repeat that. You are having thoughts like, I'm not good enough, this is never going to work, like doubt, oh my God, how am I going to find a job, how am I going to find a partner, blah, 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 blah. Like whatever the thought is, whenever there's suffering, there's a thought creating the suffering. These thoughts are related then, because of these thoughts, you having feelings. So there's a very interesting interplay going on between your thoughts and your feelings. But remember that when you are having certain feelings in the body, that also creates thoughts. So there's this kind of fascinating loop between, if you think this thought, then you have this feeling. But also if you feel a certain feeling, like you feel fearful, you start having fearful thoughts. So what's happened in terms of like EMFs and scary movies and all the stuff that we're plugged into and the doomsday scrolling and the news headlines and the whatever is putting us into a fear frequency. So we are having fearful thoughts as a result simply of like what is around us. And most people who are awakening are empaths and tend to have like very open systems because the light has been able to come in. Okay, so we are more open, therefore we are more affected by this stuff. So we take on this frequency of fear, we then start having fearful thoughts, but they're not our own. So you can try and override these thoughts like, no, I am going to be a success, I can do this, I will find it, and you constantly, like, you're pushing against the system, you're pushing against the tide. Whereas if we learn how to take care of our bodies in a different way so that we move ourselves into a more relaxed state, a feeling of safety in the body, like I'm safe here, I'm safe on this planet. Breathing into that feeling of safety now. Okay, and to many of us, that's totally unfamiliar. We've never felt safe. We didn't grow up in families where it was safe. Okay, so we've never known this feeling of safety in the body. So the mind stays in survival mode and struggle mode. And like we just keep going in circles. And that's what most of us are just tired of. Like, I'm done. I'm done going in circles. I'd like to go forward now. So we can't do it from the mind. We have to do it through the body. So helping the body to feel relaxed and taking the actions that help your body feel relaxed. Now, caffeine is one of the biggest ones, and I'm not going to bang on about it in this video, but I'm having my own battle with caffeine at the moment because it plugs us straight back into this enslavement matrix. It has this frequency, because it's a plant, it has a frequency of making you feel you need to achieve in order to be worthy. Now, you can understand why there's a Starbucks on every single corner, because it serves the matrix agenda to have you addicted to coffee. Because imagine, if everybody feels like they have to be a worker bee, it doesn't necessarily make you do the right things, it just makes you do things. Like, it makes you feel I must do things, I must get things done. So it's the perfect drug for the slave matrix. Now, I'm not saying coffee is all bad and that you must never have coffee, but can you understand that if you're not clear on your purpose and you already have some anxiety around your income, your life, your whatever, you have some anxiety going on, there's a lot of shit, it's busy, there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of stuff coming at you, you have this innate unworthiness that's been like programmed into us through this whole matrix since we got here. Now you add caffeine on the top. Can you see what a recipe for disaster that is? Like, I can, and yet, boy, it is so hard to break. And as a recovering Coke addict, of course, I like the stimulants. So I'm going through my own battle with coffee, and I will share about that. Matcha, by the way, does not have the same effect, but it gives you caffeine. So you can try matcha. And matcha cappuccinos with a lot of honey or whatever are actually quite nice. Green tea, no, not so much. I can do a matcha cappuccino over green tea any day. So when you are struggling, you are back in the illusion. You've created problems to solve from your identity. So that is part of how this whole earth game works, is that you project these like obstacles for yourself, and then you have to transcend them. And in doing that, you have to find inner strength and belief, and you have to find compassion and forgiveness and all of the divine qualities. So that's how this kind of earth game is supposed to be set up. Okay, it's been hijacked, but it's supposed to work in this way, that you go through these obstacles and then you find these qualities in yourself and you transcend them. But it's a pretty painful way to learn, because a lot of us then get stuck in, I'm trying to heal all my childhood wounds like all the time. There is another path open to us. And that is essentially what I'm being shown the Ministry of Eternal Light is about, and why I was given this mission. And oh my God, why I've been struggling with living the mission and carrying it out. I mean, it's one thing to have made this transition from lawyer to kind of ascension guide and teacher. And then I was told that now you're here to start a ministry. And of course, it's been like pretty confusing. A lot of us are coming into our mission in a whole new way, like gifts coming online. I mean, I've been channeling for more than 12 years, so that's become more familiar. But a lot of people are developing, remembering spiritual gifts like pretty rapidly right now. And it can be wild. And being suddenly shown like that you have this mission or told or guided, and you like, but what to me, little more. I thought I was here to be an XYZ, and now you're telling me something else. And I'm seeing this across the board. People just questioning, like, why am I here? What is it I am to do? And those who are figuring out what they're here to do going, oh my God, like, how am I going to do that? So we get lost in the how. So this other path that is open to us is the path of devotion. It is the path of giving our minds back to God. So not trying to override your whole human character. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a beautiful, amazing, whole and holy being. But when you are stuck listening to those programs of childhood running on repeat, everything negative that's ever been said to you, it gets really exhausting. I joke and say, I wouldn't be into ego dissolution if I had a nicer ego, but mine's shit, okay? It keeps telling me that, like, I'm just not good enough and I'm not going to make it and things are always going to be like this in whatever area I'm stuck in. So, yeah, based on what my ego keeps telling me, I'm like all ready for ego dissolution and to push that voice to the side, to lovingly say, like, I hear your doubts and fears, but I'm more of all of those. I'm more than all of those things that you are telling me. I don't need to listen and buy in and then feel shit about myself. We have something going on that I just want to touch on, and I really want to speak to the Council of Light more about this topic. But basically, a lot of the spiritual industry has been hijacked by what they call false light teachings. And these teachings try and encourage you to create an identity that likes power from external sources. So, like, I am validated by all the money that I'm receiving. I'm validated by all the likes and the followers. And basically, I'm looking for power outside of myself. And it's quite an extractive. It's trying to extract from people rather than replenish. And a lot of these teachers are having a fair amount of success, but encouraging others to do the same. So, you pay me like a whole lot of money, and then, you in turn will get people to pay you a whole lot of money. Some people are really dabbling into almost like occult practices. And I will explain in other videos this thing about most of the teachings of the light. Okay, so spiritual practices, esoteric practices, had to be pushed underground because we had a mainstream system that was not allowing these to be taught, and so they were pushed underground. Some went to communities who were safeguarding, like the Essenes. Okay, so where Jesus was part of. So some of these communities were safeguarding these teachings so they wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. But remember that they did fall into the wrong hands. So we have a whole elite which is well trained in metaphysical processes and the occult and how to manipulate energy and make people do things. So these teachings on reality and creation are unfortunately not only being used for the light. So we've got some of these false light teachers who are part of a more extractive and power over kind of a concept. And compounded, and what has made this more complicated is that we're in an era now where the monetary system is the main form of enslavement of humanity. I mean, we've got big pharma and we've got a whole lot of like various things, and we've got the military industrial complex and the education and but when we look at the monetary system, like that's been the primary one to keep people in scarcity and in lack and in shame and in victim mentality. And just look around, like we live in this grossly inequitable system that like makes no sense at all, with everybody just working jobs that don't even serve most of them, but to like keep the whole cogs in the machines going round and round. So if you ask most people what their biggest issue is, it's money. So we're at the stage where this entire system is collapsing, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. But because of this enslavement by the monetary system, we're at this time where even spiritual teachers are forced into this commodification, that is a word, commodification of everything on the earth. And the Council of Light has said to me, it is very difficult for many of you, and I'm talking to all the teachers and ascension workers in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. It is very difficult for many of you to transcend this way of doing business and earning a living. We understand this, and we see the struggles many of you are having. Things will soon be changing. In the meantime, please trust that as you allow the light of God to shine through you, the old programming will fall away and it will be easier to receive. That is not to say that you should not be charging for your spiritual work. We are in an era where money is the primary method of exchange, and this energy exchange is vital. There needs to be, when you are serving energy, you need to be able to receive. It's not always, though, give, take relationships, sometimes you give but you receive from somewhere else. Okay, so it's not that the person that you serve is always able to give back, but you give and then it comes from here. So it's definitely, I'm not saying that we should not be receiving for our work, but that there is this hijacking to be aware of, and really it's about discernment. And so you will sense when you come across someone who's teaching something, whether it's Reiki or whether it is how to protect your field or develop your psychic awareness or learn to channel or whatever it is, you will need to discern whether this is a teacher of the light, what feels right and good and whole and holy in your body, and you need to determine the energetic exchange that feels good to you. So we are finding our way through like a really complicated time in human history, and above all, like I said, there is this exhaustion in terms of going back to sleep again. I'm going to have a series specifically for light workers who are serving in a healing capacity of some sort, because more messages are coming through. But today I just want to drop in and share this message for anyone who keeps going, why am I falling back to sleep in the illusion? And I'm going to have a whole series on just short messages from the council on how to manage this thing of going back to sleep in the illusion all the time and how hard it is. So I'm going to share a message from the council to end off today's video. Just take a deep breath. And drop fully back into this human divine vehicle that you are in. Take a moment to breathe in deep peace. You're here now. Whatever you're going to do in 5 minutes' time can wait. Just be here now, allowing yourself to remember who you are and why you came. And the Council of Light wants to share this message. Keep coming back to your true self again and again. Do not mourn when you realize you have fallen back into the illusion. Simply go, I am back home, now I have remembered. And then proceed about your day from this standpoint. And when once again you find yourself suffering, when the joy at being alive is forgotten as you let an illusion pass through you, stop and place your hand on your heart and repeat slowly, I am back home now, I have remembered. For that's what you experience on earth, illusion after illusion, created from your own mind. And when you see this, you will realize you are the creator of all. It is daunting, for you have not been told how things work upon the earth. You have been schooled in an inverse system, forced to look outside of yourself for all that lies within. But now you are learning, beloveds, that the world exists inside you. Yes, you are truthfully an enormous being of great light, and within you lies the world. The world that appears outside of you is in fact inside of you, and that is because you believe your mind lies inside your body, and thus must be very small. If it has to fit inside your body, then it must by necessity be much smaller than the things you see around you. But your mind does not lie inside the body. It only thinks it lies inside the body when it is cut off from all its other channels. It hears then only the channel of the physical senses and believes it is here in this spacesuit experiencing a series of events. At this level, it is impossible to know how creation works. It is only as you break through the veil between the third dimension and the higher realms that you sense the enormity of who you are, a massive, multidimensional being of such glory it will surprise you all when you are one day able to perceive who you truly are. We wish to prepare you for this experience because it is important that you start to connect now, adjusting gradually to the enormous psychological challenge of realizing you are not who you thought you were. your life will change entirely when you start to accept the truth. You will feel you are coming home, because this is home. Home to yourself, your true self. Thank you for letting me be of service. I hope that this has helped you. This message is one that I have shared in a series called the Earth School Reminders that I have put as a standalone product. There are 3. I'm going to add more, but there are 3 currently in the series of Earth School Reminders. It's $33. And if that appeals to you, if you want to be able to listen to these on repeat like I have to stay awake in the illusion, then those are there. And I will keep putting as much on YouTube as I can as possible. Thanks and bye.